This podcast is meant for general health information and is not meant to override any medical advice. All questions will be screened and not contain any personal information. If you want a private consultation, contact us via positivechoice.org, or you can contact your provider directly. Thank you and enjoy the episode.
Hello and welcome to the Positive Choice Wellness Podcast. My name is Melanie and I'm an exercise physiologist.
And my name is Kimberly and I'm a registered dietitian.
Hello, Kimberly.
Hello, how's it going?
It is going. People cannot see the video, but I realized as I'm staring at myself, I'm wearing my glasses, which is not normal. So
that is not normal for you. I noticed.
No.
I picked up on that too.
I was like, wait a minute, there's something off about my video right now. Oh, it's because I didn't put my contacts on yet. So that's cool.
That's great.
Yeah. So this is what I look like without optometry, like making my eyes look normal. It's weird.
I like them though. I've always liked glasses, to be honest.
You know, they're great until you work out or they slip off your face or literally anything that inconveniences you. And then they're not so great.
Well, fair enough. Yeah, that makes sense.
But, you know, it's fine. We got to see.
Yeah.
Well, before we dive into our topic today, what brings you joy today, Kimberly?
Yes. What's bringing me joy today is, this is a little bit of, I don't know, looking into the future, but I have a day off next week, just in the middle of the week. I'm so pumped. So
just cause you felt like it.
It's actually my birthday.
Oh, how dare you have a birthday.
I know, right?
Happy early birthday.
It'll just be nice. Thank you. I am excited. Yes.
Wonderful.
But what about you? What's bringing you joy?
I bought a bunch of DVDs.
Wait, that is fun.
Well, I should correct that. Blu-rays. They're not DVDs because my husband is a bit of a snob when it comes to video quality. So
Same,
I had this like epiphany over the weekend of just like, I need to own media. Haven't bought a DVD or any sort of like DVD type thing in years because I've been streaming everything. And then we get to this conundrum where with our favorite movies, we're just like, we can't find it on anything, or we don't want to pay money for a movie we've seen a million times.
Yes.
So I bit the bullet and I did pay money, but now I own it. So
exactly.
We have a bunch of Blu-ray DVDs of really crummy comedy movies from the 90s. And I'm very happy about it. So, and early 2000s, there's a couple in there as well. So that's bringing me joy.
That's honestly really fun. I would enjoy that too. I love some entertainment.
I think it's just because like Back to the Future is on right now. So we've been watching all the Back to the Futures. We just finished the third one this weekend and I was like, we should own things.
Isn't that so funny though? Because this day and age has changed that a little bit.
A little bit. And we have like a bucket of DVDs in the garage, but they're DVDs. So like as far as my husband's concerned, they're not good. So I have to own the better version. So I'm updating and upgrading my array of things we can watch for funsies. And so now we have things we're going to watch over the weekend and he has no choice. So yay. So it brings me joy.
I love it.
So that there we are.
Perfect.
Well, unrelated to buying DVDs and digital media, we are going to talk about something completely different. And it was because Kimberly and I were just kind of chatting, trying to come up with something as far as a topic for today that would be interesting for everybody to listen to. And one of the things that it just comes up in our classes all the time is these like food rules, like rules that people set and parameters they set around what they're supposed to do based on something maybe they heard some time ago.
Absolutely. Yeah. And they tend to be, I don't know, somewhat trendy out there as well too, right? They're these like myths that somehow gain life and get ran away with. So I think it'll be fun.
Yeah, it's myths that I think regardless of how much we debunk them, they're still going to be prominent in our lives because they're things that people just don't let go of.
For sure. Exactly. And you're right. It's sometimes people want rules to follow or they want this kind of like structure or something like that. And yeah, I think that's why these are hard to let go of.
Exactly. So these food quote unquote rules, they're kind of outdated and not really helpful for anybody. And so what we're going to kind of dive into is what these quote unquote rules are, and then just the research around them, whether or not it actually has any substantial claim, maybe to open some people's eyes a little bit around maybe what they're doing, if it's working or not.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's dive on in, shall we? Because we don't have to define anything. So darn it, I don't have to do definitions. But we'll get started with a rule. So the first rule that we hear all the time, don't eat after 7 p.m.
Ooh, that's a very common one, right? I've had patients absolutely say that there's like a certain window or timestamp that they need to cut off their eating at. I'm
And
sure
very
you've had the same experience.
Yeah. And very specifically 7 p.m.
Yeah.
Like, that's the time.
Almost exclusively. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
I actually, funny enough, I had someone in my class last night say that. They were like, oh, I stopped eating after 7. It's made a difference. I'm like, oh, okay. Any reason why you chose 7? But it's just interesting because I heard it last night. So like, this is something that definitely comes up.
Yes, it really does. And I think that the reason why it comes up and the reason why eating after 7 or whatever gets a bad reputation is because usually we're less mindful, right? That's like usually the time where we're like, rewarding foods are harder to say no to, or we just eat too much, right? Or like something like that. It's I think that's where this one comes into play. But
I call it gremlin mode, where you go into gremlin mode at night, start scrounging around your kitchen, looking for something to nibble on.
Looking for scraps. Yeah, totally. I would agree with that.
Yeah. And like, obviously I think the myth around it is, of course, like it'll cause weight gain or it screws up your metabolism and things like that. Which, you know, they've done studies on this, and there's a couple studies they did. Basically, one of the studies they did by McKill and Wright back in 2016. So basically stating that circadian rhythms do affect metabolism slightly. So like if we're eating in our like downtime window, it can definitely impact metabolism like a little bit. But they found that weight gain is not really tied in with when you're eating. It's more around excess calories and eating a poor diet. So diet that's high in like processed food and fat and sugar and things like that is more of the problem rather than the time you're eating at.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that has been founded in research because I always tell my classes, you know, weight loss and weight gain really comes down to how many calories did you consume from the time you were awake to the time you went to sleep, not necessarily the time of day at which you ate them, right? So yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I will say circadian rhythm does play a role in the sense of like there are times when our body is most active.
Right.
So in those waking hours of the day, it is important to get your food in when you're like doing your most stuff, because that's when you're most active. That's when you need the energy. We don't really need it per se when we're winding down at night, but it's not really associated with a specific time because, you know, what about night shift workers, right? Like this can get really weird based on your schedule.
100%. Yeah, it's always difficult for people who work like graveyard shifts and stuff, but yeah.
But what I want to hear, so you shared with me before we started recording a statistic from one of our dietitians in another class. Do you want to share that statistic really quick?
Yes, it was that 75% of, is that the one that you're talking about? The 75%?
Yeah.
Okay. Just checking. I think that's the only one I shared. 75% of people who are overweight or obese do not eat breakfast. That was the statistic. So
it's funny enough you say that because there's a research study here that I'm looking at that kind of like backs that up.
You're right.
So yeah, isn't that weird? So there is a study that came out in 2016 as well. I am not going to attempt to pronounce that name. I will. Al-Musawi. I'm not great at pronouncing names. So basically they did a study and they determined that nighttime eaters often skip breakfast and generally have a lower quality diet overall. But it's not late night eating that's the problem. In terms of weight gain or whatever. It's not inherently harmful. It's really like all the other things that come with it.
Right. Exactly. Like the lack of mindfulness, perhaps, or maybe you're hitting a fast food joint because you don't want to go home and make something, right?
Yeah,
Something
and it's
like
likely the type of food you're choosing to eat late at night. I'm doubtful it's yogurt and berries or a salad or something healthy. It's probably chips or cookies or crackers. Typically, you don't see people scrounging around their fridge looking for something yummy and choosing hummus. Like that's not
unfortunately,
option, typically.
It's not what we want late at night. Yeah.
But I think to add to that too, I mean, one thing that happens when we're sleeping as your body is regenerating all its cells and doing all the stuff it needs to do to like recover and rest and be ready for the next day. And one of the problems is if you eat at night, like your stomach isn't going to be digesting all the food that's in there like while you're sleeping very effectively. It slows down dramatically while you're asleep. So what could be related to skipping breakfast is the fact that your stomach's still full of food from the night before.
Yeah, 100%. That was my thoughts exactly as well.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting because, there's some statistics that float around regarding that. But it really, I think, comes down to what type of food you're eating the night before, how much you're eating. Because like if you eat at like 8 or 9 o'clock because you're genuinely hungry and you're choosing something healthy, highly unlikely you're going to wake up in the morning and skip breakfast.
Right. Yeah, I exactly agree.
But interestingly enough, we're going to skip to a different myth because I think it's tied in with this. So I think it'd be worthwhile to talk about that. So we're talking about breakfast. Let's talk about myth number 2. So you must eat breakfast to be healthy because we're talking about like, oh, skipping breakfast bad. Well, is it?
Right. Which is such an interesting one because it's, you hear for years and years, you hear things like breakfast is the most important meal of the day, right? But then things such as like intermittent fasting make an appearance and people choose to omit breakfast completely and eat food later on in their day. So it's just interesting how breakfast, I mean, all things nutrition really, but breakfast tends to be one that's a floater as far as like, should we have it or should we not? And I think the reality of the matter is that some people do thrive when they have breakfast. Some people need it, right? You're hungry in the morning. You gotta, it's breaking the fast from overnight. That's where the name comes from. But some people don't, right? Some people don't wake up hungry at all. And one thing we encourage at Positive Choice is, being mindful, right, with our eating. So eat when you're hungry, stop when you're satisfied type of thing. So you don't have to force yourself to eat breakfast if you aren't physically hungry for it, right?
Exactly.
So you kind of have to figure out what works for you because everybody's body is different.
That's why we have job security. So
exactly.
Because everybody, you're right. Everyone is very different. And so we can't say there's a one size fits all way of eating. And right. I would agree that you don't necessarily need to eat breakfast, at least not immediately in the morning. But, you have to consider this as well. Like you're getting up, you're out and about, you're doing stuff. And if you're just you don't eat until like maybe noon or later, you might be like super hungry to the point where it's almost detrimental to your thinking process. Like you're just so dang hungry.
Right.
That might be where I would suggest having something in the morning so you're not so hungry that the decisions you make may be things you maybe otherwise probably wouldn't have made.
Yeah, I super agree with that. I've worked with patients who did not traditionally eat breakfast, but maybe were more grazy during the day, had more cravings, things like that. And their blood sugars weren't totally stable either. And for a lot of those people, when you implement having a healthy breakfast, right? Like we don't want you to have a bowl of sugary cereal, but have some protein, some good healthy carbohydrates, that kind of thing can really help set the tone for your day and help if you do struggle with grazing or cravings and things like that during your day.
Exactly. And I like to just think about this fact that my mom has some interesting eating habits, but basically she skips breakfast. She doesn't eat breakfast.
Okay.
And she's like, oh, I'm just not hungry until probably about 6 p.m. So she just doesn't eat like all day. But then the thing is, she claims, quote unquote, she's not hungry. But then from 6 p.m. until she's going to bed, she's just munch. It's eating nonstop.
Totally.
So it ties in with that eating late at night scenario. She's just eating nonstop until she goes to sleep. And then she's, of course, her stomach's full of food in the morning. So she skips breakfast. So that's why I kind of wanted to pair these myths up because I think they're kind of related.
Absolutely. I super agree with that. I definitely do. And there was one study done by, I'm going to say this name is Sievert in 2019.
So.
Is that right? Ish?
Yeah,
okay, I'm not good at pronouncing either. But this one was done in 2019. And I think that sometimes we think that if we eat breakfast, it's guaranteed to result in a crazy health benefit for us, right? Like weight loss or something like that. And anyway, this study done in 2019 actually showed that breakfast does not guarantee weight loss and skipping it doesn't necessarily cause weight gain either. So you do have to literally just like pay attention to you and your body, right? What works best for you and your energy levels. And are you grazing during the day? That kind of stuff. You have to take it all into account for yourself because everybody's different.
Quality meals, the right amount of calories. Like if your goal is weight loss, for example, it's if you're overeating throughout the day, breakfast is not the problem here.
Right.
Whether you eat it or not. If you're overeating everywhere else, that's where we got to look at. Right. So
exactly.
As much as I'd love for it to be simple, it is not.
I know. If only. I guess the way you could break it down simply, though, is just say eat when you're hungry. Right.
Yeah.
And I will say, too, though, that your body does like routine and consistency. So as much as you can have consistency, right, like across your from day to day basis type of thing, I think that is important. So try to stick to a routine, but eat when you're hungry, stop when you're satisfied type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. I like that attitude. Pay attention to body cues, hunger signals.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, let's do another one because there's a lot here. So I want to talk about now the mythical rule number 3. So carbs make you fat.
I was going to say, I love this one because I do. This is like notorious for like the last, I don't even know how many years. Right. And a lot of like trendy fad diets don't help with this either. But yeah, carbs are the enemy. They're the worst. Don't touch them. Don't look at them. Right.
Yep.
That's kind of what this one falls into. And okay, just being fully transparent, carbs are actually your body's primary fuel source. And when you say carbs, yes, you're talking about bread and rice and pasta, but you're also talking about fruits and vegetables too. So just don't forget, those are thrown into that category as well. And excess calories from anything, literally anything, can lead to weight gain, even if it's something healthy, right? So I think the reason why carbs get a bad rep is because what we do to them traditionally. We're, especially in our culture, we're eating a lot of like white flour based products or things that are like ultra processed in the store, like chips, cookies, crackers, like you mentioned earlier, versus like our fruits, our veggies, our whole grains. So the type matters.
Exactly. I agree with you in that because if you're choosing to eat a bunch of bread and pasta and chips and cookies, like you're probably not going to see a lot of significant results if your goal is weight loss. However, eating stuff like fruits, veggies, whole grains, like I always have this conversation with my classes, but like none of y'all are here because you ate too many bananas and carrots. Like not a single person is in this room right now for that reason. So we like to put everything in a box, especially because like with the rise of type 2 diabetes and pre-diabetes, there's a lot of education around limiting high sugar products. And I think there's a little bit of a misconception around quality products. So when people say, oh, bananas are high in sugar and beets are high in sugar and carrots are high in sugar, there's an issue there, I think, where, I mean, in the sense of compared to like a cucumber, bananas have more sugar. But if you were to compare a banana to, let's say, a cupcake or a cookie, I think there's a considerable difference between the two and the type of sugar you're eating and the amount of fiber that's present. So when we lump these carbs into this category as a bad thing, I think that it makes it very restrictive, one. And then two, it's not really true because there's really no evidence that eating fruit's going to be a problem for anybody.
Right, exactly. Because there's so many beneficial nutrients in our produce in general, right? And it's not, I think some people look at sugar as like black and white, right? Like if I eat a banana, that's the same thing as eating X amount of tablespoons of sugar. And it's just not the same. When it's naturally occurring in a fruit or a vegetable or a dairy product, right? If it's a plain unflavored dairy product, your body just processes it so differently because there's fiber, there's protein in there, there's antioxidants in there, right? So it's not the same as eating pure table sugar equivalent.
Exactly. So when people say like, oh, I don't eat carbs, it's always funny because they're like, but I'll have salad. I'm like, yeah, okay. It's like, if you know the technical definition of vegetables, they are a carb, but whatever.
Yes.
The main thing I think people are saying is that we're restricting like processed carbs, which is fine. Restrict processed carbs, limit those because those are not inherently healthy. Really prioritize the quality ones that are like your whole grains, your vegetables, your fruits, your beans, that type of stuff. And to add to that as well, I think it's also important to recognize that like if your concern is pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes and you're like, oh my gosh, but I still have problems when I eat carbs like fruits and vegetables too because my blood sugar still spikes, make sure you're not eating them alone. So Part of it also is like, because our number one fuel source is glucose, your body is very efficient to be able to break down carbohydrates into sugar. Like that is what our bodies are very, very good at doing, regardless of what that carbohydrate is. It's tuned in to be able to break carbs down. And if you're worried about spiking your blood sugar, just, if you're going to have a banana, don't have a banana by itself. Have it with some peanut butter or with some yogurt. Having something that's high protein or like moderate healthy fat with it is going to slow things down.
Yeah, absolutely. And that has the added benefit of keeping you fuller for longer too, right? Because inherently our carbs don't keep us full for very long. No. So yeah, always make that pairing. Even your fruits and your vegetables, even our good healthy carb sources, pair them with a healthy protein or a healthy fat to help with your blood sugar and keep you nice and full.
Exactly. Pair your macros.
Pair your macros. Yeah.
All right, let's do another one. So this one, I feel like a lot of people are going to go, no, because they feel it in their bones. Rule number 4, time to clean your plate. Make sure your plate is clean.
And this is wasteful. One of those. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, it's that myth around like you're wasting food. There's children who are starving that don't get that access. So you got to make sure you benefit and finish your food, right?
Yes. And this is one of those that's usually ingrained in our brains from when we were little, right? Depending on like who your parent or guardian was that raised you and what their rules were. That's why it's hard for us to shake by the time we're like adults and can make our own food choices. It becomes a lot more difficult to say that maybe these are wrong or things that are possible to not listen to, right?
Yeah.
But part of the problem with the clean your plate especially is it doesn't allow us, which we've been talking about today already, it doesn't allow us to stop when we're satisfied, right? Yeah. It's like, it's kind of covering up that cue for us because we have to eat until all the food is gone type of thing.
It's interesting, like, because, I'll watch like my niece or something when she's eating and she'll, have a couple bites of something and she's like, I'm good, and just stop. I'm like, man, I wish I had that ability. That's so cool.
Same.
Because
100%.
I think I don't want to say it's inherent because I know sometimes that's not the case, but I feel like for kids, especially like naturally when they're younger, they're able to be in tune with their body cues. And if they're not hungry anymore, they stop. It's really outside environmental or parental cues that drive them to continue to eat sometimes, which can teach them how to override those signals and essentially override their satiety signal. And once you start getting familiar with overriding your satiety signal, it's really easy to do that after a while. And then you're more likely to overeat. And then also the guilt with, well, if I don't finish my plate, I'll get in trouble because you always did when you were a kid. And that's a whole other can of worms I don't want to open. But, it's definitely multifaceted. It's not so simple as just don't finish your plate. Just stop when you're full because there's some other stuff going on.
There is. You're completely right. And that reminds me of like, we talk about this in class with patients sometimes and how, some patients get to the point where they're like, but now I'm not satisfied until I'm like overstuffed or until my plate is cleaned off, right? Because we've just been doing it for so long. But yeah, you're right. It's multifaceted. There's a lot of pieces to that puzzle.
And you're not a better person for finishing your plate. It doesn't make you better because you finished it. I think it's a weird subconscious thought I think a lot of us have where it's like, oh, I finished my plate. Hooray. Those starving children. Like, are they benefiting from that food you ate? Like,
right.
I get the logic behind it. Like you have food, whereas other people do not. So appreciate your food, which is fair. But I think we almost have too much food sometimes. And we eat with our eyes. We take way too big of portions because we're just trained because of restaurants, because we're getting those big portions at restaurants. And at the end of the day, you're like, and this is something that Annalise says a lot in her classes, like you are not a trash can.
Love that.
We are treating our bodies like trash cans. Instead of throwing out your food because you're full, you're eating it instead. What is the difference between you and a trash can at that point? And I can tell you, there's more detriments to overeating than there are to throwing it in the trash.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you're not to counter what you said earlier too, or, same theme. You're not a bad person for throwing food in the trash either. Right. So yeah, that's good. We are not trash cans. I love that.
Yeah. And I get like people feel like, well, it's so wasteful. Then my other argument is take less food. Like if you need more, go back and get more. But like, don't take so much that you feel compelled to finish your plate. Like I'd rather you take some and then if you need more, go back for more versus just overdoing it. It's way easier to go back for seconds than it is to sit there and face the guilt of, oh, I took too much. Now I feel committed.
Yeah. Now I have to finish this. Exactly. And another thing you could do too is get smaller plates, right? Like the standard dinner plate at home is like roughly 12 inches in diameter. We should be eating on something more like 9. So if you're looking for an excuse to buy new kitchenware, there you go. But yeah, try smaller plates and see how that goes.
We eat with our eyes. Sometimes it's about tricking our brain a little bit and saying, well, this is the size plate and looks so small, but then the amount of food looks abundant and it can help you feel a little bit better about how much you have.
Yeah.
Because I know no one likes to look at a plate and see all that white space, go, oh, good, space.
No, no, our brains are like, I'll be starving still after this, right?
Exactly.
We don't like to see the blank. So yeah, absolutely.
So like I said, you're not a trash can. Don't treat yourself as one, take smaller plate or take smaller size of food and go back for more if you need it. Like that's where we stand on this. Don't be a part of the clean plates club anymore. Hang up your jacket.
Yeah.
We have
Quit
jackets.
The club.
Yeah, quit the club. Yeah. It takes time, but I believe in you.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do our final rule. And this one is healthy eating has to be perfect.
Isn't that lovely to hear? Yeah, it's true. We view it very black and white, right? Like on it or off of it, no in between.
Nope.
Yeah. And often that results in us just thinking that like one bad something ruins all the rest, right? Like a bad snack or a bad meal, bad moment, whatever. We have to be clean and perfect and on it all the time. And the reality is that can actually lead us to the binge restrict cycle, right? Like when we are viewing eating as it has to be perfect, generally we're thinking about all the things that we cannot have, right? All the things that we have to say no to. And that just does not set us up for a great amount of success. So I think we've talked about this in other podcasts, but I'm a big believer in the 80-20 rule, which is like 80% of the time you're on your game, right? Doing what you should be. 20% of the time you get some wiggle room.
Exactly.
And that's because one, it should be about balance. Eating is pleasurable. Eating gives us joy, right? Like we should still have foods that we like. We just want to have them in moderation versus copious amounts. But also, I'll be honest, some of the grumpiest people I know are the strictest with their eating. So I think that there's something to be said for that too, right? In terms of like happiness. So that should be good news that healthy eating does not have to be black and white perfect.
Exactly. And I agree with you wholeheartedly there because I am a big promoter of just like the words we use around food. And like, I find when people are really kind of overly on top of eating healthy to the point where like they just choose not to have any joy, which, it to each their own if that's the way you want to live. But unless you've never tried things in your life and you've only ever eaten healthy, so you don't know what sugar tastes like and you don't know what those things taste like, which I don't think very many people on this planet kind of exist like that. We've all tried something. It's hard to completely restrict and eliminate things from your diet like that. And I don't believe in restriction because I find that restriction breeds, those binging behaviors, those overeating behaviors. It really does.
Absolutely.
Because it's the whole, like, don't push the big red button conundrum where I'm like, hey, don't push that button. And you're like, oh, but I want to push the button. Like, I don't know what it does, but I got to push it.
And now I need to. Yeah.
And it's when you're telling yourself absolutely not, it's almost like it puts it on a pedestal where it's like, it's so bad you can't have it.
Yes.
And there's no inherent, well, I could argue, yes, there are, but there's no inherently bad food outside of trans fats. Those are ones I will classify as bad. But other than those, there's really no inherently bad food. Like you can't sit there and say, oh, cookies are bad or bread is bad. It's like, well, not really. It's just how much you're eating. That is the problem. So if you eat a ton, like an entire loaf of bread, yeah, that might not be great, but at the end of the day, it was a choice. And I think it's driven by what we tell ourselves. This food is a no-no food. And then you want it even more because it's not allowed. It is taboo. So get more gray area in here. It's less black or white, more gray area. And that's this reality of it. Just 80% of the time you get the good stuff and then healthy things. And then 20% of the time and splurge a little, enjoy yourself, be a human being. It's okay. You're not a robot.
Agreed. You are not a robot, and we deserve some yummy food. We deserve some rewards sometimes. Where I will say people run away with that 80-20 rule is sometimes people view 20% of their week, for example, to be, Friday at noon to Sunday at midnight type of thing. And at that point, that's way more than 20% of our week. So we can be over generous, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But you do have to allow yourself to have that wiggle room, because you're exactly right. Otherwise we put it on a pedestal, and that seems to be the only thing we can actually think about. Like, even if you're eating other food, you're not getting satisfied because you're thinking about the things that you can't have or you shouldn't have or whatever. Right.
Exactly. And, I'll just share this just because I have a friend of mine who's been doing like the carnivore diet, and I have a few friends who like ask me about like, why aren't you saying anything? And it's like, one, I'm not getting paid, and two, her life, her business, not my business. I'm not about to sit there and do my job. Like, I'm not going to do that, because she's allowed to choose what she wants to do. But what I will share is she's constantly complaining all the time about what she can't have and what she can't eat and what she can't do.
Yes.
And, I don't think that's a fun way to live life when you're just miserable all the time, like wishing you could have certain things. I'm a big proponent of just balance, finding a way to find balance in life. And I've had the same issue over the course of my life with wanting tempting things and then not being able to have them. And the reality of the situation is, when I came to terms with, okay, I'm not going to say no, I'm just going to say I can't bring it in my house. And then I can go out and have it in like small controlled doses, if you will. I'm fine. Then it's not a problem anymore. And now it's because, like, I'm not saying it works for everybody, but it's worked for me because I'm not sitting there saying, no, you can't have that. I'm saying, oh, I can have it. I can just go down to the store and get it if I want to. I can't bring it in my front door.
I love that. Because it's true, right? A lot of like our success, so to speak, does depend on what we do choose to bring into our home. So it's important to think about a strategy that works for you in that way. Like, what helps you have balance? Is it not bringing it in the home, or whatever the case may be? But yeah,
exactly.
That's great.
But I think that's it. We got some good rules in here. I think we covered quite a bit of ground today as far as some of the myths out there.
Yeah, some common ones. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. So what I appreciate, I think, to takeaways here, a lot of the time when we have these like rules, it's really just an oversimplification of things. It's not really based on science. It's just arbitrary things that we've told ourselves over the years and turned into like this mythical rule that's not really real. A lot of this is just listening to your own body, trust yourself and how you feel. And, don't be super strict. That's another one. Don't be super strict.
Yes. What's going to work for you long term, not just like right here, right now, or short term, right? You want it to be something that's sustainable for your life.
Exactly. So what I will say is, if you're trying to battle some of these food rules, like pick the one maybe that resonated with you the most of the ones we talked about, and try to work on one of those this week. So if you're someone who's, really stingy about carbs per se, maybe that's where you can enjoy some beans this week, and that, make your microbiome happy and see how that feels.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Try to challenge yourself to let go of one of those rules, perhaps. And yeah, it's true. Your gut loves beans. So it's a great place to begin.
I just think of all the episodes. You're like, beans. I'm like, okay, let's promote beans again. Big Bean is running this company. All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, you're welcome to comment below. We do have dietitians that work with people. So if you wanted to work with someone at Positive Choice, who work with people all over the country, as well as virtually and in person. So of course, if you aren't in San Diego, we can't work with you in person, but you know what I mean. But with that being said, until next time, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Struggling to lose weight and keep it off? At the Positive Choice Integrative Wellness Center, our meal replacement program can help you take the guesswork out of weight loss. With support from medical providers, dietitians, and health educators, you'll use nutritionally complete meal replacements to lose weight safely and effectively. The best part? You're not doing it alone. Whether you want to lose 10 pounds or 100, our program is flexible, affordable, and focused on long-term success, not quick fixes. Take the first step towards lasting change. Visit positivechoice.org/meal replacements to learn more and get started today.